I'm in the middle of moving to a new place now, which is why I haven't made a video in about a week. But it's fascinating, the kind of like established norm, the new law, almost like Murphy's Law, but I'm going to call it Sussan's Law. And that is the current version of the coalition, and more specifically the Liberal Party. If you don't pay attention to it for any amount of time, it will without doubt be more dysfunctional and more chaotic than when you last looked. So what did we miss over the last week? Well, if you were curious, could the issue of net zero take over the coalition any more than it currently has? Well, the answer was yes, because we are now at the point where there are direct threats being made against Sussan Ley's leadership over this issue of net zero. Now, the actor at the center of this week's drama is, to nobody's surprise, Andrew Hastie, a man who I've talked about a couple of times being kind of an agitator on this issue, and someone who very, very obviously, in my opinion, has the knife out for Ley's leadership and is almost certainly going to take over the party after her inevitable defeat in 2028, if she makes it that far. You'll remember that it was my opinion a couple of videos ago that Andrew Hastie was behind the idea of the WA Liberals, their state branch, voting to ditch net zero. It was specifically Andrew Hastie's local division, his local branch of the WA Liberals, that put forward that motion to the broader state branch for a member-wide vote on abolishing net zero. Now, you can say that's just coincidence. I personally do not believe that. But what changed this week is that Andrew Hastie became a little bit more direct and much more public when it came to his thoughts on net zero. When he was asked in an interview, what would it mean for you if Sussan Ley adopted net zero by 2050 for the Liberal Party? And Andrew Hastie, in no uncertain terms, just said, I would be out of a job. And clarified that he would be leaving shadow cabinet if Sussan Ley had the Liberal Party agree to net zero by 2050. A very direct and open way to say, if you adopt that policy, Sussan, then I, and I assume a lot of my hard-right friends within the party, are going to leave the front bench and just sow open division within the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party's shadow education minister went even further when he was asked about this, and he said that net zero, in his words, by any cost, by 2050, would lead to a mass exodus from the Liberal front bench. That is the most thinly veiled threat of, if you pursue net zero, then you are not going to be a leader anymore. If a leader's policies lead to a complete exodus, as they've called it, amongst one of the party's factions, then that leader has clearly failed to unite the party, and their position is untenable. There's another political YouTuber, a guy who does great Ozpol content, Swollen Pickles, who just did a video around this liberal infighting. I highly recommend that you check it out. And one of the interesting points that he brings up is that a lot of the liberal messaging, particularly from the right of the party from this point on, will be net zero at any cost, which does not exist. Here's the problem that the right of the Liberal Party has on this vendetta that they are collectively going on against net zero. Opposing it doesn't make any fucking sense. It is utterly ludicrous. It is electoral suicide to say to the Australian electorate, which overwhelmingly supports climate action, going to them and saying, we want to abandon commitments to do anything about climate change. There is no logic in that path. So what I think the right wing of the Liberal Party is testing at the moment is this idea of the term net zero at any cost, implying that somehow achieving net zero is going to be done by whatever government is in power in such a way that damages Australians. And that is such a weak fucking political message. We are talking about a country here, Australia, where a majority of people believe in climate action and believe in the consequences of doing nothing. And the consequences of doing nothing is, to put it lightly, literally the end of the world if climate action isn't taken seriously. There is no way you can sell the pitch to the Australian public who is aware of that reality and believes in it, that, you don't want to go for net zero at any cost. I mean, think about the downsides. The alternative is literally hell on earth. It's just not 2013 anymore. There isn't an electorate in this country broadly which just looks at climate change and the consequences of it and says, oh, nah, maybe it's not even real. That is not a base that can get you elected anymore. The majority of voters now are millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z. They outnumber boomers now, and these people are going to have to deal with the consequences. And pitching them the idea of, fuck it, let's do nothing because it might be too dangerous, is not going to fly. It is one hell of a hill to die on for the right of the Liberal Party. And the Liberals literally cannot catch a break on this issue. On Friday, Sussan Ley was asked about this, about the idea of targets and how to set them for reducing climate emissions. And she said that she didn't support setting climate targets from opposition or from government. In layman's terms, she said that the Liberal Party does not support climate targets at all, whether in opposition or in government. Now, this was very clearly her misspeaking. She very quickly tried to rectify those comments and say, no, I meant we don't support setting targets in opposition because we don't have all the information, but of course we will find like some target in government, but of course the Labour Party already seized on it before she could correct herself. And you just sit here wondering, how much more can they screw up? It's so sad. It's so rough how much Sussan Ley was set up on a glass cliff as evidence of progress within the party, a female leader who has just been set up to fail in so many ways. She is in what is effectively a completely unwinnable position when it comes to the 2028 election. She has a right-wing faction telling her, if you adopt sensible popular climate policy, we will destroy your leadership. And on top of that, the Liberal Party is polling lower than it has at any point in its existence. There was a story from The Australian not too long ago, just a couple of days, I think maybe even yesterday, where the news broke that coalition support among men is only at 28%. The coalition is winning nowhere, anywhere. And they're all going to find a way to pin it on Sussan. The fact that they are losing young people, women, and men. Pretty much everyone with a pulse is abandoning this sinking ship. But at the last moment, they gave the official role of captain to a woman to blame it on her. I would like to apologize for this video being a little bit less analysis and a little bit more me just venting my frustrations with what I'm seeing at the moment. Because look, in any normal democracy, I guess Australia's not, but anyway, in any normal democracy with a functioning opposition, we would be talking about the fact that the government, Labor, this week have announced their emissions reduction target, a reduction of 70% in the next decade. That's what they're aiming for at most. But we can't talk about that because of the elephant in the room. Only it's not an elephant. It is the broad church of Australian conservatism burning to the ground. I don't know how many videos I can make explaining the scale of what we're witnessing. We're watching the Liberal Party kill itself. And not only that, it's doing it for no reason. But it does give me the opportunity to end this video in what I think is a satisfying and somewhat relative to my life way. And that is to the people in the Liberal Party who are not insane, but can see the fact that the party is heading in this way where it's clinging to and dying on the hill of opposing any action on climate change. Well, we actually have something in common. You in the burning down Liberal Party, me in this, what will soon be my former place of residence. And guys, that is to any remaining sane, moderate Liberals out there. Guys, it's time to pack up our shit and get out of here.